Title fraud is on the rise in Canada as more cases of people impersonating homeowners and tenants continue popping up in provinces like Ontario and British Columbia. Now, these fraudsters then go to the bank to borrow money against the target house, get approved, register the mortgage, and of course, steal the money. Brian King, the president and CEO of King International Advisory Group, says his firm received 30 such claims in Ontario. Now, this includes 6 cases where con artists posed as homeowners and listed properties for sale. And he's not alone. The president of First Canadian Title Company Limited says the firm had seen a definite rise in title fraud. Well, joining us now to give us his advice on how to protect yourself from title fraud is Mr. Brian King himself. Sir, welcome to Forum Daily.
Thank you for having me.
Now, we gave a brief overview of what title fraud could look like, but can you walk us through this process and just how these fraudsters are able to evade regulatory bodies and successfully fool big banks?
Well, firstly, they work in a group, and they're very good at what they do. The fraudsters, of course, what they're going to do is they're going to impersonate the homeowner. What they do though is they target a property first. In other words, they're looking for a property with a high equity value. In other words, no first mortgage or a very low first mortgage. And once they have that information, which they can usually get from land titles, what they'll do then is then start researching the homeowner and gathering information that they require to produce and manufacture identification such as driver's licenses, citizenship cards, or passports. They basically need 2 pieces of ID, and they're very good at it. So much so that once they have that identification created, they can then impersonate the homeowner and fool the lawyers, the real estate agents, everybody along the line in the process.
That's some really shocking information there, Mr. King. So, what do you think is contributing to this rise in title fraud cases in Canada?
Well, I think, when it comes to British Columbia and Ontario, the high price of homes. So we've seen a huge escalation in recent years of the value of homes. So it's not atypical to see a homeowner who's owned a property for a lengthy period of time to have a very high equity value in the home, and that's what they're looking for, because they want to get as much money as they can.
Now, things have been really shifting following the pandemic, especially the shift to a sort of virtual communication. So, how has all of this affected the issue of title fraud in Canada?
Well, it actually escalated. What we saw when the pandemic hit was a move from in-person signings to virtual signings. So that allowed the fraudsters a little bit of freedom, in so much that nobody was meeting with the homeowners personally. And of course, they're not handling and touching the identification; they're being shown it virtually. And so what we saw at the beginning of the pandemic was an increase in what we call mortgage frauds. It's a little different than your total title transfer. This is where they would put a large mortgage on the property. Of course, they've impersonated you now. So what they then do is they open a bank account under your name. It's only used for this transaction. And they have the funds from that mortgage directed to that bank account, and then they take that money, and it's usually gone within a 7-day period and transferred to either cryptocurrency or gold, and then in some instances moved right out of the country.
All right, Mr. King, a quick 1 minute left here in this segment, but what kind of steps can our viewers take, our homeowner viewers can take to protect their properties?
One of the biggest pieces of advice I give, especially for homeowners that purchased their homes prior to 2000, mid 2000s, when title insurance wasn't very vogue, is to get title insurance, because title insurance protects you. The title insurer will then deal with the aftermath of this. And but really, once these are very organized fraud groups, and once they've targeted a particular home, it's very hard for you to stop them, because they're totally impersonating you, and you're not aware. You're not usually aware for several months later.
All right, Mr. King, we appreciate your time today on Forum Daily. Thank you for your advice.
Thank you.